This time, the Planet Mechanics are tackling a tricky challenge down on the farm. Can they tame this fuel-guzzling monster by turning cow muck into gas? Or will they find themselves in much deeper doo-doo?
That's a bit of an environmental disaster zone.
Dick Strawbridge is an ex-army officer turned eco-warrior. Jem Stansfield is an inventor with a wild green streak. Two men on a mission to fix the world. One mechanical solution at a time. Together, they are the Planet Mechanics. Right. Dick and Jem are heading for Devon, a rural county in the southwest of England.
Deepest Devonshire.
They want to see if their unique brand of eco-engineering can help green up a farm. With about 3/4 of Devon's area covered by farms, you'd think you couldn't get much greener. But city boy Jem is staggered by the size of the gas-guzzling machinery needed to work this land.
There is not a small farm vehicle out there. They are all massive diesel engines. You think of the city as being where all the kind of cars are and where all the pollution is, but these things chuck out a lot of fumes.
The Planet Mechanics are off to meet Andy Barnes. Like most farmers, he relies on fossil fuels. But Dick and Jem are itching to change all that. Together with Andy and his sons Mikey, Richie and Bob, they're planning to clean up the farm.
Look at that. An actual steaming pile of manure. You don't get more farm than that.
They will be working out of the back of this former livestock transporter. It's an old horse box, converted into a wind and solar-powered workshop. But before they can get their tools out, they need to pinpoint where Farmer Andy uses the most fossil fuel.
He's got some very big toys.
Hello, mate.
Hello there, boy.
Nice to meet you, mate.
Really nice to meet you. Jem, how are you going on there, boy?
God. Always wanted to come and go one of these.
Free, isn't it?
We'll do free, remember.
On his 250 acres, Andy rears 200 cattle and grows a mix of crops such as wheat and oilseed rape, which is sold and turned into animal feed and cooking oil. Andy keeps a fleet of agricultural vehicles, but his pride and joy is this massive diesel-gulping combine harvester. So is this his biggest fuel user?
What size engine is this?
If I was to tell you he's 15.5 litres,
Way to
what's your
go.
average car?
1.5's average, isn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly. Well, this is 15.
Andy can spend over £10,000 a year on fuel. And although the combine is one of his thirstiest beasts, it's nothing compared to the monster he keeps in this barn.
Boys, this is what you want to see.
Okay, what we got here?
This here's me grain dryer. This is what I dries me corn with.
Grain can't be stored if it's too wet. Trouble is, the average British summer means crops sometimes have to be harvested when damp. So Andy uses this massive burner to dry out his grain. It's big, but Dick and Jem certainly aren't expecting how powerful this machine is. The grain dryer is essentially a large chamber filled with hot air. A conveyor belt moves a thick layer of grain through the chamber, and as the air passes through it, the moisture gradually evaporates. But it requires a huge amount of fuel.
That's burning 20 gallons of diesel an hour.
20 UK gallons is about 90 litres. That's enough to dry about 10 tonnes of grain. But with harvests weighing up to 400 tonnes, the dryer can drink over £1,000 worth of fuel on one crop. It's a serial environmental offender. Andy knows the fossil fuel gulping grain dryer is bad for both the environment and his bank balance. But if the crops are wet, he has to use it. It's a catch-22 problem that will test Dick and Jem to the limit. Time for a cuppa and some hard thinking. But first, Dick and Jem need to power up their horse box. It's their Eco HQ.
Okay, Jem, let's get up.
All yours.
A fully equipped workshop on wheels.
Perfect.
Power for the tools comes from a wind turbine. And this solar panel is rotated to track the sun. The current is fed into a bank of batteries, and thanks to a gadget called an inverter, the boys can draw off power at mains voltage. In a matter of minutes, the mechanics are ready to get down to business.
This has been a bit of an eye-opener for me. I spend my life wading through the city smog, imagining that out in the country on the farms, it's just the greenest place to be. But I've never seen so much fuel used in one place. We go around and we see all the massive machines, think, I bet that drinks a few gallons. And then he opens the door to that grain dryer and you're like, oh, different league. To me, that's the big issue.
Andy's monster dryer burns as much fossil fuel in one 10-hour day as a family car might in a whole year. So, can Dick and Jem find a green way of firing it? On the walk around the farm, Andy showed Dick and Jem his cattle. And where there's cows, there's muck. And Andy's got loads of it.
You got the biggest wellies.
Much of this slurry will be used as fertiliser. But there's usually lots left over. And Dick spotted an innovative recycling opportunity.
I like the idea of using his muck.
Muck into gold. That's what we're doing. And biogas.
We can do that. For his burner.
For his burner.
Biogas is flammable and can be extracted from manure. It consists mainly of methane and is made by bacteria that live and feed off the dung. If Dick and Jem can build something to manufacture this gas, they could burn it in the grain dryer. It would give Andy free energy from a completely renewable source.
I love the idea, but what exactly would we build?
We need a tank that we fill full of slurry. We have to have a way of it going in and coming out. So we just keep it topped up, right?
Yep.
And then, with all of the muck actually being broken down, it's going to give off gas. And that gas, we need to take down and we need to store it in a big tank. And the gas goes from there into his burner.
This is going to have to be huge.
Absolutely.
The plan is big and bold. They want to build their very own biogas plant. They're comparatively rare in Europe, but used very effectively in many other parts of the world. They'll need 2 tanks, one to contain cow muck and another, much larger tank, to store the biogas that's manufactured. If their daring idea works, they'll finally green up that monster grain dryer. The Planet mechanics are planning to manufacture potentially explosive gas. It seems a good idea to place the biogas plant well away from the farm buildings.
Andy, if you're happy for us to put this plan into operation, where are you okay for us to site what is essentially a gasworks? We are storing a vast amount of explosive gas. Do you ever do any work on here that involves sparks, engines?
I reckon we do most of that end of the
Right,
place,
okay.
really. Yeah, that's
I had to check.
We'll stick it here. We're a long ways from anything else.
Yeah.
If anything goes wrong, ain't got too much problem. I'll do it.
Hopefully, Andy's right. But to demonstrate what could happen if things do go wrong, Jem is setting up an experiment to simulate a gas explosion.
So I'm going to put some methane in here, because that's pretty much what your biogas is.
That should be.
And then we're going to light the flame that comes out the top of it. So as the methane comes out the top, it's going to burn. Now, as that burns, it's going to start sucking air in this little hole at the bottom.
Yeah.
And this is going to show where it gets horrendously dangerous.
Methane, when stored on its own, is relatively safe. It's only when air gets in that the mixture could explode if lit. Surprisingly, though, there has to be around 90% air for an explosion to happen. But this is just a small-scale demo. Dick and Jem want to manufacture thousands of times more gas than this. And if enough air mixed with such a large amount of methane, the results could be catastrophic. The normally jolly Andy is looking worried. This is no time for second thoughts. If Dick and Jem are going to green up the grain dryer, they need to get on with the job. They're off on a shopping trip on Dick's biofueled motorbike.
It's looking good, mate. Andy's got the connections.
Andy's tipped them off about a tank. They could fill this with cow slurry and use it as a digester to make biogas.
As the digester, we've got holes in it, which means we can get the slurry and the muck into it, yeah?
Pipe to put the slurry in, another pipe to take the gas out, and then some kind of sealed hole going in to kind of agitate the stuff while it's in there.
Farmers are natural-born recyclers. They just hate throwing things away. After all, who knows when somebody may pop by wanting to buy a rusty, leaking, rotten old muck spreader.
Easy, Barnsey.
With a helping hand from Andy's neighbour, it doesn't take long to lift that long-abandoned tank. And with Andy at the wheel, it's a good idea to firmly secure that load.
Good digester, mate.
Yeah, so long as it's still on there by the time he gets back to the farm.
Back at the farm, work can begin.
Got it, Dick?
The first job on the digester is to strip down the tank and check inside for holes.
Right, mate, first things first.
I think we should lob this off, and then we'll be able to see what the damage is inside.
Dick and Jem are delighted to get stuck into some good old-fashioned metal bashing. These eco-engineers love having a practical problem to solve, and if there's a solution that means recycling old materials, they couldn't be happier. Once they've battered the digester into submission, Jem jumps in to check the damage.
Yeah, it's good.
Well, almost.
There is just the one hole, Dick. Probably could do with patching this one.
The digester gets its name because the muck inside is digested by bacteria, living naturally in cow manure. Given a bit of heat and a lack of oxygen, the bacteria should happily munch through the muck, making plenty of flammable methane.
Pleasant.
And to make sure the digester offers a happy home for the bugs, the guys are going to install some special features. Firstly, Jem's making a muck mixing device to give the bacteria constant contact with lovely, fresh, turned manure.
Because of the blades, the way they are, you can either push it through the muck this way and the sharp end goes through and it goes through fairly easily. But if the muck's really thin and runny, then you send the bucket end in and you get much more agitation. It should, one way will work.
Window's done, mate.
Dick's adding extra comfort with a central heating system. Bacteria like it warm and make maximum methane at about 35 Celsius. To help out the bugs, he's connecting up a system of domestic radiators.
Cheers, Mikey. Careful, careful, careful. That's very, very important.
I'm looking at... Is that something at my house?
That radiator is what's going to be providing our heat. We're going to have to insulate the whole thing to keep it warm. And the rest of the radiator is going to be like, you know, solar panels, collecting all the sunshine.
One radiator will go inside. And by painting the external ones black, they'll soak up heat from the sun and transfer it into the digester.